I don't usually share stories online, but this one has stayed with me for years. It's one of those true scary stories that I still can't fully explain, and every time I talk about it, I get that same chill down my spine, like I'm right back in that room. It happened a few years ago, when I was living in a small town in upstate New York, the kind of place where everyone knows each other. The streets are quiet after dark, and most nights you can hear nothing but the crickets outside your window. I was renting this old two-story house on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it had character: creaky wooden floors, narrow hallways, and a draft that always made the place feel colder than it should have. That night, I had stayed up late watching TV in my bedroom. It was sometime past 2 a.m. when I decided to finally call it a night. I remember the clock on my nightstand glowing 2:07 in green digital numbers. I turned off the lamp, slid under the blankets, and let the silence settle in. That's when I heard it. At first it was faint, a slow, heavy breathing. In, out, in, out. I froze, thinking maybe it was the house itself, the way old houses sometimes sigh and settle. But then it grew louder, steadier, like someone was lying right next to me on the floor. The realization hit me all at once. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway, or the closet, or outside the window. It was coming from under my bed. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I told myself it had to be in my head, that maybe I was half asleep and imagining it. But the breathing didn't stop. Slow, rhythmic, too real to be a dream. I lay there, paralyzed, trying not to make a sound. Every horror movie I had ever seen told me not to look, but curiosity, or maybe survival instinct, got the better of me. I slowly leaned over the side of the bed and peered into the darkness beneath. Nothing, just shadows. But here's the thing. The moment I looked, the breathing stopped. Dead silent. I lay back down, trying to convince myself it was my imagination. Maybe I was hearing the wind outside. Maybe the old heater had kicked on. But just as I was starting to calm down, the bed frame creaked just slightly, like weight shifting beneath me. I didn't sleep that night. I turned on every light in the room, grabbed my phone, and sat up against the headboard until the sun came up. When morning finally came, I got down on my hands and knees, lifted the bed skirt, and checked. Nothing. No signs anyone had been there. Just dust and an old pair of sneakers. For a while, I managed to convince myself it was just exhaustion playing tricks on me. But things didn't stop there. A week later, it happened again. This time I wasn't even in bed. I was at my desk across the room, finishing up some late-night paperwork for my job. It was quiet, just me, the sound of my pen scratching against paper, and the occasional hum of a car passing by outside. Then I heard it again, breathing. It was unmistakable. Heavy, wet, too close. I looked toward the window, thinking maybe it was someone outside, but no, the sound was coming from behind me. From the bed, from under the bed. I remember gripping the pen so tight my knuckles went white. I didn't want to move, but I forced myself to turn slowly in my chair. My bed sat there, still and ordinary, the white sheet tucked neatly over the mattress. Nothing out of place. But I swear to you, I heard movement, a faint rustle, like fabric brushing against wood. I grabbed my phone and tried to record it. But of course, the second I hit record, everything went silent again. Things escalated from there. It wasn't just the breathing anymore. Some nights I'd hear scratching, long, deliberate scratches against the underside of the mattress. Other times I'd wake up to the feeling that the bed itself was shifting, like someone was crawling out from beneath it. I even had a friend stay over once. I didn't tell him what had been happening. I didn't want to sound crazy. He crashed on the couch downstairs while I took my room. Around 3 a.m., I heard him shouting my name. I ran down to find him, pale and shaken. He swore he heard footsteps upstairs, pacing back and forth across my bedroom. But when we went up together, the room was empty. That's when I started researching. I looked up local legends, ghost stories, anything that might explain it. To my surprise, I found that the town had its share of urban legends. One in particular stood out decades ago. There had been reports of a man who broke into houses at night, hiding under beds until the homeowners fell asleep. Some said he was caught. Others said he vanished. A few claimed he died in prison, but no one seemed to agree on the ending. What creeped me out the most was that people online called it one of those true scary stories parents would tell their kids to scare them into locking their doors at night. But I wasn't a kid, and I wasn't just hearing a story. Something was happening in my house. One night, I decided I'd had enough. I left my phone recording audio while I slept, just to prove to myself that I wasn't losing it. The next morning, I checked the recording. For the first few hours, it was just silence. Then, around 2:15 a.m., it started breathing, clear as day, but there was more. I heard the sound of a whisper. Not words I could understand, just a low murmur, like someone talking to themselves right beneath me. Then came 3 distinct knocks against the wooden frame of my bed. Slow, intentional. I deleted the file immediately. I couldn't listen to it again. I ended up moving out a month later. I told the landlord I needed to relocate for work, but the truth was, I couldn't spend another night in that house. The final straw came the week before I left. I had just turned off the light and was lying in bed, trying to sleep, when I felt it. A hand ice cold brushing against my ankle from under the blankets. I jumped up, flicked on the lamp, and tore the covers off. Nothing, just me, alone in the room. But I know what I felt, and I know what I heard. To this day, I don't know what was under that bed, or if it followed me after I left. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, and for a split second I swear I hear it again. That slow, steady breathing in the dark. Maybe it was a spirit, maybe it was something else, or maybe it was the echo of a story people had told for so long that it somehow became real. All I know is that it happened. And if you've ever wondered whether those so-called true scary stories you hear online are real, trust me, some of them are. Because I lived one and it started at 2 a.m. with something breathing under my bed.